magandang umaga po. Ngayon ay 8/10/2023. Ito po ay nais ko lang i-share sa inyo. Ito ay subscriber ng BioAIDS. Ito ay bioethics news from around the world. So nakalagay po rito ay Euthanasia in Canada, MaiD in hell. Ito pa yung kuntusin last month pa ito, July 26, 2023. The United Kingdom and the countries are looking to Canada for guidelines about how to legislate for euthanasia, according to a group called UK Humanists. We can and should turn from Canada to create those that are right for the UK. Canada's euthanasia regime, which officially termed medical assistance in dying. Wow, bigat, medical assistance in dying, or MaiD, So is often described as the most radical in the world. In a recent article, The Spectator UK journalist Douglas Murray described it as a hell path. After March 2024, he opened doctor will be able to kill or award medical assisted suicide to people of any age who suffer from anorexia, depression, PTSD, or a growing smorgasbord of other debilitating ailments. UK humanists denied this pessimistic view of the future after studying a number of cases which came to light in the Canadian media. It reports concluded optimistically, "We don't believe that anyone in Canada has had an assisted death who should not have been able to." However, recent articles of the journal Palliative and Supportive Care by 3 Canadian doctors and bioethicists covers much of the same ground. Far more detail and comes to a very different conclusion. The Canadian MaiD regime is lacking the safeguards, data collections, and oversight necessary to protect Canadians against premature death. Their article is an excellent overview of the status quo in Canada before MaiD for mental illness becomes legal next March. They attempt to identify the policy gaps as warning to other jurisdictions. These are the followings: inadequate data collection. Doctors self-report, and they are likely to report errors of omissions which might result in prosecuting them for not observing guidelines. Unsurprisingly, media stories about people with disability or mental illness who receive MaiD will not even mention in the government's annual report on the program. Next, lack of oversight. Rather than the government accepting responsibility for setting up procedures for investigation, the Justice Minister stated that oversight must be provided by family members complaining after the fact to initiate disciplinary actions or police investigation. 3. Prioritizing access made over patient safety and needs. Although Canada's Supreme Court has not established an explicit right to die with dignity, bureaucrats have even when other options are available, patients are being steered toward MaiD. Furthermore, a doctor who objects to patient's request, even if only in specific cases for specific circumstances, thus arguably, even if that objection is based on an opinion that medical professional standards of care have not been met, is deemed to be consciously objector who must refer the patient to a willing doctor. So, parang obligation mo pa na maghanap. Proactively offering MaiD to patients as though it is one of many standard treatment options. This put patients under pressure to accept MaiD, makes them feel that their suffering really is intolerable, and makes them fearful of assessing medical care. Ay mabigat. Undefined terminology in the legislation. Patients can request MaiD if they face the prospect of reasonably foreseeable natural death, even if death is imminent nor their conditions terminal. The wording of the act is imprecise and makes clear determination and consistent implementation of clinical practice standards for MaiD difficult. Suffering is subjectively defined and can be rooted and psychosocial distress. More and more stories are emerging on people who requested MaiD because they could not access social services. One woman even left an exit video in which she said, "The government sees me as an expendable trash." A government minister has even admitted that it is easier to access MaiD than to get a wheelchair in some parts of the country. Medyo mabigat to, no? Iba na yung priorities dito. Government priorities to, pinag-usapan natin. Proactively offering MaiD to patients as though it is one of the many standard treatment options. In other jurisdictions, doctors are forbidden to raise the topic of euthanasia or assisted suicide with their patients. Not in Canada. No other country in the world has normalized assisted suicide or euthanasia in this way as a potential first-line therapeutic option to address suffering, the authors write. Next, no standard treatment must have been tried first or even be available. No? In Belgium and Netherlands, euthanasia can only be an option when all treatment option has been exhausted. But in Canada, there is no requirement that standards best practice treatments has been appropriately attempted or even they are accessible. Tragically, some people are choosing to die while on wait list for potentially effective treatment or because they are refused care. Ano? So, ano yan? Parang easy exit. Suicide contagion. Yan. There is anecdotal evidence that some people request MaiD after hearing about other cases in the media, but the government assuming that MaiD will make suicide less common, a position which is not supported by evidence. So what comes next for Canadians with illness and disabilities? The authors are worried about normalization of MaiD as accessible to relieve suffering and to stop being burdens of their loved ones. The rates are being dramatically year by year. In 2020, MaiD accounted for 3.3% of all deaths and 7% in some areas. Bigat nito, 3.3 and even 7%. Kawa nawa tayo ng Diyos.